When I left school just before my 16th birthday, I took with me a couple of O-levels and a bunch of CSEs, which, to be honest, never really seemed to equate to much. But within a few weeks, I was doing a very mundane job testing military equipment on a factory floor, the first and only job that I applied for at that stage. 6 years later, and I returned to college to study media and get 2 A-levels. As ordinary as that course was, it was good for my confidence, as I knew I could tackle A-levels then, having not really been ready at 16, 17. For the first few weeks, I felt so much older than the other students and very self-conscious. But I did really enjoy being a student and fully embrace the opportunity in a way that I might not have done in the years before. And that course led me to meeting the manager of a new radio station launching in Slough, which then led to the start of my career. But studying when you're older, being a mature student, is not an easy decision. I actually think more people should decide to do it and not just take a break for the cliche year of travelling after school, but actually delay for a bit longer so that you know you're ready mentally and academically, and maybe really know what you want to do or what the right course might be. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Media Mentor podcast. I'm David Spencer. Over the last 20 years, I've helped hundreds of people advance their career, and this series is about sharing some of that advice and hearing from people that I've helped and other experts across the sector. On this episode, I wanted to do something just a little bit different and chat to Simon Woolcott, who, like me, returned to study when he was older, but not in his 20s, 30s or even 40s. Simon decided to do a degree in radio production in his 50s, and I had the pleasure of teaching Simon and have since worked regularly with him. So what I wanted to do was find out how he felt about that experience of being a mature student and what he gained from that experience, having already established himself in the radio industry as a presenter in the years before. Simon, thank you very much for chatting to me on this podcast. And we're going to talk about being a mature student and your reasoning for doing the course. How big a decision was it? Take us back to that point.
In the end, it was quite an easy decision because I didn't have anything else to do. I'd been made redundant and I was working for a mate as a labourer, and I'm not really cut out to be a labourer. What crossed my mind initially was, I wonder if you can study radio at degree level, because I never did degree when I was younger. I failed my A-levels, so I didn't automatically go to university like nearly everyone at my sixth form. So I just kind of went into the job market.
And was it normal for your peers to go to university? It was a big thing for you not to do that.
Yeah, but then I wasn't in a great place at that age, so I didn't. People were talking about UCAS as it was then, or UCA, or whatever it was called, the university clearing, and I didn't know what anyone was talking about. So they all went off, and I was like, "Oh, well, that didn't go well." I got design and technology, grade E.
That's all right.
Yeah, physics and maths failed, so I didn't go to university. And then, and you couldn't have studied radio in those days anyway. It was 1981. There was no such thing as a degree in radio. You just stumbled into broadcasting. And so I thought to myself, having worked in radio, because I kind of stumbled into that as well, I thought to myself, I wonder if you can study it now. Did a search for radio courses, and there they all were. And I thought, I wonder if I could do a degree now as a mature student. And apparently you could, and you didn't need qualifications because you were a mature student. You'd had life skills and some industry experience. So I kind of explored how much it would cost, and I thought, well, I've got nothing else to do, so I might as well learn about what I've just been doing and do a degree, because all my peers had a degree.
Well, one of the things that I'm a big proponent of is not forcing people at 18 to think university then is the choice, or then you never go to university. So if you use your example, you weren't ready then, you weren't sort of kitted out to maybe do university. But that might be, I'd say to people, you could wait a few years. 3 decades is quite a long time before then deciding to do university. And it's obviously a much bigger decision. So when you found the course, you found that you could learn about radio. What were some of the things that you were then either self-conscious or aware of going into study effectively when, you're in your 50s?
I mean, it was interesting because I thought, I wonder how much of this I already know. Turns out, tiny amount. Technical stuff, editorial stuff. The biggest change for me was learning critical thinking, which is what, in my opinion, university is all about. So I approached it probably not like a young student would approach it, because a young student, you just automatically go like many of my peers did. And by the way, at the time, I didn't think, oh, it's all right, I can go in a few years. It never even crossed my mind that I'd ever go. This junction in my life where I had time to do it was what spurred me on to do it. But then as soon as I started the process, I just kind of fell into it.
And one thing I would think about, and it says more probably about me than anyone else, is I'd be incredibly self-conscious and be spending probably at least the first semester thinking all of these other people on the course are wondering, what's he doing here? Was that something that bothered you, or could you sort of ignore that?
Oh, no, it completely bothered me. And I was very self-aware. I was thinking they don't want this old man hanging around with them. Down with the kids. Yeah, I know about pop music. Yeah, we're all in this together. I was like, I should just leave them be. I should go to the lectures and try not to answer too many questions, because I was quite aware that some 18 to 21, 22-year-olds are not very forthcoming when the lecturer says, what do you think of this? Ask this and that. And, of course, I was like putting my metaphorical hand up every 5 seconds. But I allowed space for other students to ask questions and to be involved, and only when I was kind of directly asked. Because I was conscious that I was going to show off, because I worked in the industry. In the industry they all wanted to work in. Well, yes, of course, I've been doing this for 12 years on live radio. I didn't want to be that person, but I also didn't want to be the person like in coffee breaks. There's 2 coffee shops on this campus at the University of Westminster, one down by the main entrance and one in the main sort of congregating area. I used to go off and have my coffee on my own and kind of read a book or get my iPad out or whatever, because I didn't want to impose myself by hanging around with them. So I was very self-aware, and not to be the sort of, the jolly uncle type creature, because it's just horrible.
Did it change over time, though, as the course went on?
We went to a student radio conference, which is like 3 days away at another university, staying in halls. I didn't stay in halls. I booked an Airbnb. But, of course, inevitably, a few drinks were imbibed. And I actually remember saying this to them, and they all said, we really wanted you to be part of our group. We really wanted you to be friends of ours, because we could learn so much from you because you'd done it. And we thought you were just standoffish because you weren't interested in us. And I said, no, I just didn't want to impose myself and be, hey, gang. So it turned out that I needn't have worried, but maybe because I was less forthcoming, they wanted my company more. If I'd have imposed myself, they might have gone, here's Simon again. So maybe I did the right thing.
And we should make clear that this is not like doing an MA or a shorter course. You embarked on the full degree experience, which to me is almost braver, because that is a commitment of time as well as the expense that you mentioned that we'll touch on again. But, to embark on that 3-year journey effectively was a big decision, surely.
It was, and I was encouraged to do a master's straight away by one of the universities I interviewed at. They said, why don't you go to this other place and do a master's? And I was like, so I did go and explore that, but I wanted to do a degree. I wanted the degree experience. I wanted the undergraduate experience, because I didn't know what I was going to do. So the longer it went on, the more time I had to figure out what I was going to do. And also I hoped it might help my career. I wasn't doing it just for fun. I was doing it to move on to the next stage. Because if you, I don't know, the media landscape had changed dramatically. You kind of like, you fell into particularly radio, pop music radio. But now you either have to train to get into it, or you have to have a brand. And I had no training. So I'd see these jobs come up, junior production assistant for the must have this, a degree in this. And I thought, well, I can't go in there and go, well, I've been on the radio for 10 years, get a job. So I wanted to get some qualifications under my belt, but I knew I had to be the best at getting those. I wasn't just doing it for fun. I wanted a first. And from the very first week, I was like, I want a first, and I'm going to work towards a first.
And that probably is an attitude that is easier come by with age, to be fair, because you're probably not thinking quite the same way at 18, 19. I'm sure some do, but also it's just a process a little bit more. It's an automatic thing that a lot of people do. You mentioned about critical thinking, and I think this is really interesting because I think, and I've said this a lot, that I'm a better journalist having taught for effectively 15 years because I analyse what I do. And as soon as I started doing that, because I don't have a degree, that has made my work better on both sides. The fact that I do journalism and can sort of teach on the back of doing something that day or the previous day, but also my journalism is far more analytical. I ask questions. Is that the main thing that sort of doing the degree gave you, as well as kind of the academic background that we'll touch on, you know, the kind of names that you're taught?
Yeah, in a way, because I was just doing it naturally. I was just on the radio, thought I was brilliant, probably more brilliant than I was, but I didn't know the technical minutiae of what I was doing. I didn't know how to construct a radio program. I mean, I did because I'd listened to radio programs for years, but I couldn't. I mean, I did interview some famous people along the way. I had no idea how to write an interview, so I just asked them the questions I was interested in. But when you're taught techniques, it comes into focus. It's kind of, this is why you do this, and this is why you plan, and whatever. And I mean, I was, blow my own trumpet, I was a bit of a natural, but any other aspect of it, like producing a program, putting a program together, building a program, I didn't know any of, apart from doing mine technically. And I don't mean knob twiddling technically, I mean intellectually technically. I had no idea what I was doing. So it was interesting to retrospectively learn how to do it properly rather than instinctively.
And I got to teach you during this.
Yes.
And one of the things that you've said to me is that the module that I was teaching was called talk radio. So it should have been called speech radio.
It should.
Just so it doesn't get attached to any brands. But speech radio was obviously very different to what you'd done in music radio. And I remember you saying that you were really keen to make sure you do the things that push you outside your comfort zone with that, because that speech radio module was really different for you.
Absolutely. I mean, there was a commercial music radio module where you're chatting, playing jingles, doing records, whatever, introducing songs. And I didn't put myself forward to be a presenter on that because I'd done it for 10 years. However, speech radio, where you've got to hit times and you can't just go, oh, it's all gone wrong, here's a song. I threw myself into the deep end to learn, to get out of my comfort zone, because there's no point in going to learn stuff and then sitting there and just concentrating on the stuff you already do. You have to stretch yourself.
But I think that, again, goes back to a kind of attitude to, if deciding to do the course, there's no point if you're not going to have that attitude. But I also get that why that might be hard for people. If people are thinking, okay, I haven't got a degree or I didn't study to this level, I'd consider doing it in my career. Lots of people are thinking about moving across sectors, whether it would be from journalism to comms or even the other way. It's a big decision to go back to studying. It's why my thing of when you're 18, delay it if you want to. The reason why we don't delay it is because as soon as we start earning money and we move into normal life, we might not go into education. But I do think some people are better suited to studying later. And I obviously say that as someone who did A-levels at 22 rather than at 16 and 17. So I think you have to have that attitude to sort of embrace the learning. And I guess that meant you got maximum out of this degree.
Absolutely. I mean, I was lucky enough to go to drama school at the age of 22. So I'd done the sort of move to the big city, come out of your shell, be yourself type stuff. The qualification I got, a diploma in dramatic art, is utterly meaningless.
Not at the top of your CV?
Not at the top of my CV. In fact, when I applied for a grant or a loan, a student loan and sustenance loan, I said, but I've had a grant. And they said, what was it for? And I told them, oh, no, that doesn't count. So I'd had my fun, and now I was doing for serious reasons, and I was going to be serious about it. I mean, I had fun as well, But I knew why I was there. I wasn't there to have fun. I was there to learn my craft and to learn about academia. And I loved academia. I'm not an academic person. I didn't think I was. But, I could never do it again. And when they said, you should do a master's, I'm like, my brain is full. It has done enough critical thinking. I know how to do it now. I don't need to do any more, but I loved it when I was doing it.
And what did it change on the other end? Did you feel like I'm a better, certainly more qualified, obviously, on paper, but for you, did you feel like a stronger candidate for things? Did it put you in a better position? Did it achieve what you wanted it to?
It was all about self-confidence. I mean, not the self-confidence to present on a pop music station, because I'd done that and I knew I could do it, and the station had won awards. But it was the confidence to go, actually, I'm not just making this up and I'm not riffing. Now I have learnt about it and I am qualified in it. And that gave me a sort of inner confidence to, apply for jobs and go, well, I can do that. When I'm filling out my CV as well, CV. Well, I got 2 E grade A levels and a diploma in dramatic art. Can I have a job here, please? And they go, there's people with degrees coming out their ears. So not only did I have the degree that I wanted, but the confidence it gave me that I had a degree and that I wasn't dumb. I was capable of doing a degree and I was capable of being an academic person. Gave me the confidence boost to go for opportunities that I would never have done before.
And I think it's such an interesting change of your perception, because you could obviously do a lot of the things that you were being taught to do in a more formal sense. As you said, you were a natural in terms of a presenter, but I actually remember with the speech radio teaching that there were lots of things that actually you could do that you just had to think about slightly differently, but that was the whole point of the process. But actually, you mentioned something like, it proved that I wasn't dumb, as you put it. I have a chip on my shoulder for not having a degree and thinking I've spent my life trying to prove to people I'm intelligent because I don't have a degree. But the degree isn't about intelligence. The degree is about critical thinking, learning about that, and also just giving you some of the formal things in place that give you the kind of structure to then go on and have a career doing whatever you want to do. Traditionally, that would be the mindset. It's just you did it the other way around.
Yeah, I did. I mean, it teaches you confidence. It teaches you analytical skills. And it teaches you how to use your own mind, I think, which is very important, and the confidence to know that your mind works properly. So it works on 2 levels. You learn about the subject and you learn about yourself, and you learn how to apply what you know and how you can do in a kind of an intellectual way, but also in a more confident way practically.
Did it affect your enjoyment of consuming radio? Because the quote is often, once you worked in radio, you can't really be a normal listener again because we listen very differently. But having studied it and looked at kind of the foundations, did it affect how you consumed radio and media generally?
I mean, I was very lucky in that everything I thought about radio was taught back at me. If I'd have had different opinions on what they were saying, and I've gone, well, they've got it all wrong. I mean, I remember the first, the station I worked at, we had no scripts. We had the running order of the songs in the play-out machine, and what you did in between the songs was entirely up to you. You could run a competition, you could have a caller, you could do what you liked. No script. And then I came to university, and we were talking about scripted. Now, obviously, for the speech radio module, it had to be scripted.
Oh, yeah.
But for the commercial music radio module, there was a script. And I was like, but they don't use script in the industry. And then later on, afterwards, I worked at Radio 2 as an assistant producer on a pop music show, which was fully scripted. It was interesting for me to understand the mechanisms behind the radio I was listening to. But also, I could imagine what was going on in the background. And it didn't change it for me. It didn't lose any of the magic, I don't think, apart from obviously understanding how some pedestrian radio is made. Because if you're doing it by the book, and if you're doing it, well, now we do this and we put that slot there, it loses some of its magic. But that's down to the people making it, not down to the knowledge I have about how it's done.
And there's lots of pedestrian radio.
Oh, I mean, I'm not saying any brand names, but yes, there's lots of pedestrian radio.
Very different interview, very different podcast. A key question, because this sounds great, and there will be people listening who might consider that they'd like to retrain or explore this area and do a course like this. How did you finance yourself?
Well, you could. So it's. I went on grants, not loans demos back in the 80s. It didn't work. So I had a student loan, but you could get a sustenance loan as well. Although I was gigging, club DJ, I had been doing so for years, so I could keep doing that even though I didn't have a day job. So I did that, but I took the full sustenance loan as well. So and you don't want to know how much money I owe. How much money I've paid back comparatively is quite small, because obviously when you retire you stop paying back,
Right.
and you have to earn over a certain amount before you start paying. So the more successful you are, the more you pay off. And I did have a moment where I sat there and go, I owe more on this than I do on my house.
Yeah.
You know, it was terrifying, but you kind of put that to the back of your mind. And retrospectively, I can say it was absolutely well worth it, because I'll never pay it all back.
So just reflecting back on that experience then, and what was, for you a really big decision to do it, no regrets at all?
I'll tell you one regret. I wish I'd studied more journalism, because there are so many jobs for journalism. And being a knowledgeable pop music radio presenter, not many jobs for that, because most people, it's mates, give it to mates, or someone who's discovered or whatever. So I wish I'd done more journalism. The only part of the degree I wasn't very good at was journalism, however. Now, write a headline for this and write some copy for it, and I just couldn't get it. I mean, I can listen to other people doing journalism and go, that's terrible journalism. I follow you on social media, and when you point out terrible journalism, that's terrible. I mean, the mercury in the thermometer has risen to 32, no, just 32 degrees. It's just 32 degrees. And there are a lot of cliches in journalism, a lot of cliches in radio. But I wish I'd done more journalism stuff, because I could have got tens of jobs, probably more so than I did. But then I don't need more jobs than I've got.
Yeah.
But it would have been nice to have another skill. And I would suggest, if you're doing something like this, if you're doing broadcast media, even if it's radio, do as much journalism in it as you can. Because
journalism has those broader things anyway, even if it's not just journalism. I think there is a little bit more in it, where the radio might be a touch niche, even if you consider podcasts like this, for example. Of which, thank you very much for being a guest on. You've been fantastic, and you were a fantastic student. We had a lot of fun on that speech radio module, and I do remember that you put together a fantastic program at the end of it. So really enjoyed teaching you and working with you since. Thank you so much for chatting to me.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Really a fascinating chat with Simon, and I really do admire his decision to return to studying at that stage. And on the podcast, we've heard from others that have also studied later in life. Carl Hartley, for example, and it's really helped his career as it has helped Simon, but also it's helped their confidence. For both of them, it was about proving themselves in a way. And whilst you shouldn't have to do that with a piece of paper, if it helps you feel more confident and validate your experience and experiences, then maybe it's worth doing. If you're thinking about embarking on a similar journey and unsure what path to take, then maybe get in touch for some advice. That's it for this latest episode of The Media Mentor. To find out more about one-to-one sessions that I offer, you can visit themediamentor.info. All the latest media jobs are also on my website, and I share them as I find them on the WhatsApp channel. Thanks again to Simon for a really lovely interview, and also for being a brilliant and supportive colleague over the last few years, as well as being a great student to teach. Thanks to Mrs. Mentor for looking after the job pages, and to Josh Sommer, who wrote this music for me. Thank you for listening, and remember to click follow on your podcast player to keep up to date with the latest episodes, and please write a review if you've enjoyed listening.